Welcome to You Can Sip With Us. I'm Colleen.
I'm Ashley.
We've got a hell of an episode for you guys. And I've got to say, okay, so we've got, and we'll have introductions here shortly when she joins us, but we've got Emily Kyle on the podcast, who is a cannabis expert.
Cannabis queen.
And I've got to say, like, I think it started over on Patreon, then it came over here. You're like, I want to learn more about cannabis. And I was like, okay. And I was neither here nor there about it, just being pregnant and not, I don't know. Like, I just, like, what's there to learn?
You don't have to justify not being excited. Right.
No, I was like, what's there to learn? I just didn't know enough.
Yeah.
And when you learn a little bit about something, and then that's what spurs you wanting to learn more about something. And so in preparing for her to come here, I went on her website and started like poking around on her story and her why of like how she got into cannabis and all, like, it's just so much. I was like, whoa. There's more here than I realized.
Well, that's probably what happened to me is actually, so Megan, the dietitian that we had on a few weeks ago, she has this like monthly membership thing called M3, and she brings on guest speakers. And several months ago, she brought on someone that was a cannabis expert and did this whole presentation on it. And I was like, what? I did not know our body has a like cannabinoid system and receptors in different areas of the body. And that's why sometimes you get high and some are better for your body and some make you sleep. And all these, I was like, why don't we know about this? And so, but it seems like a lot in a foreign world. And so I think that's probably what triggered it for me too, of like, I didn't even know there was something to learn about this. Turns out there's a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
Before we get to Emily, a hangover topic from last week.
Okay.
What do you call, there's two words for this thing. What's another name for a garbanzo bean?
Okay. Because someone texted me today and she was like, is Colleen saying chick-a-peas? And I was like, yeah, I think I did notice that. And she was like, I was waiting for you to say, are you saying chick-a-peas? But I don't know if you said it multiple times, but yeah, I just say chickpeas.
Say it again.
Chickpeas.
Say it again.
Chickpeas. Chickpea? Chickpeas.
Yeah, you guys. So my whole life, I said chickpea. It's easier to say than chickpea. Chickpea.
It does not feel easier to me.
Chickpea.
It's an extra syllable. Chickpea.
It's an extra letter that's not a part of that word.
Right.
And I was rightfully called out by many of you.
Did you say it multiple? Maybe you said it multiple times. Oh, so
and also Ashley. When someone's got a booger in their nose, you tell them. Did you not notice me saying it over and over and over? I mean, it's your fault. This isn't your fault, but it's.
Shh. Well, when I got that text today, because it's the same girl that she met. She's a client of mine, but also a friend, and like we message a few times. You know about her.
Yeah.
She won like a few things. The tagline for Best Housewives and whatever it's called. Okay. So she met and she was like, I was waiting for you to say, wait a minute, are you saying chickpea? So you must have said it a couple times. And I remember like registering it, but not enough that like as I'm thinking back, I'm like, can only really remember. It's not like it was a big thing in my brain. So, and also it's sort of is like, I don't really care that you say chickpea. It's like,
but I've gotten my
that
whole
doesn't seem
life.
the same thing as a booger in your nose. It's like tomato.
I felt a little embarrassment when people were like, Colleen, it's chickpea. And I Googled it and I was like, oh, okay. My whole life.
Yeah.
I've
said
it
chickpea. There's another, I can't remember what it is, but next time you say it, I'll say something. Because there's another word that you have said where I'm like, I don't know that that's how that's pronounced. No, it's like another situation where you add another letter. Like sometimes people call Shakeology.
Yeah.
It's Shakeology. And so if I say it abbreviated, a lot of people will say Shako.
Yeah.
Right? But lots of people say Shakio. And I'm like, that's not how you say that. It's not Shakio.
Yeah.
So something like that you say, and I've noticed it like over the course of our friendship a couple times. That's
yeah.
but it's also to me, it's like, really, do I give a fuck the way you're pronouncing chickpea or chickapea?
I do.
Well, now I know. Now I know that it's a booger in your nose, and I'll let you know about
things that I say that people are like, "Oh, you say that funny."
Oh.
And I'm like, well, I don't even know what I say funny.
Yeah.
Now I know this.
Now you know.
So hangover topic, you guys. But maybe I'm going to double down on it because I think it sounds fun. It feels more fun to bounce it that way.
It's a more fun way to say it, for sure.
I'd also be curious to know if I'm the only one on the planet.
Oh, right.
Or if there's anyone else in the world.
Well, I'm curious if your mom says it that way. Like, you had to have learned that somewhere. Because if you're reading it, you don't read chickapea.
No, you don't. But in my head, that's what
I'm saying is, like, maybe you heard that somewhere, like your mom or your grandma or like someone says it.
We went out to dinner with some friends not too long ago, and they had fried chickpeas.
She says it with venom. Chickpeas.
And I thought they were so good. And so the whole night I was talking, because, we just got this air fryer. So the whole night I'm talking about how I'm going to try making air fried chickpeas. And I'm wondering how many times our friends, it was like a double date, how many times they thought, is she pregnant and drunk? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
So,
okay. Well, now I know. I'll let you know.
On.
But it also feels like, is that a hill I want to die on? I don't give a shit.
I won't die. I will not roll you off the hill.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're just picking a booger out of my nose. Know that
I'll let you know next time I hear something. Hey, are you saying chickapea?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what okay, well, we got to get into the meat of the show. I was just going to say yesterday or today, I was thinking about how freaking fun Tahoe was and that I want to go back.
I know, I do too.
Because sometimes when I'm looking for pictures to post on my feed, I'm like scrolling through it was that night, the very first night we were there, and we walked out into the dock with the beautiful, and like we were just all euphoric. Like the sunset was just stunning.
Together.
And laughter. Yeah. And then the next part that I see is Lindy flying down the hill on the sled with our merch on, and like we just laughed, and that was where I showed the whole taco. It was the whole taco situation.
And if you haven't heard that story, you got some catching up to do.
Oh my god. Yeah, I didn't know the right and wrong way to moon. Anyway, so we got to go back again.
We do.
We got to go back.
Deal.
All right,
on with the show.
All right, you guys, I am so excited. I've been joking about this for a little while, but I wasn't really joking, that I want to learn about the cannabis industry. I feel like there is still a little bit of taboo-ness going on, but the more I learn about blood sugar and monitoring your glucose and how things impact your body and what's going on inside at the science, like cellular level, I realized, as big of a fan of an alcohol person as I am, it maybe isn't the best thing for me. And so I just want to explore this other thing, but I'm going in blind. I'm flying blind. Call, do you know anything about it?
No, but I want to. We have a very special guest. Emily Kyle is here. And Emily, I was on your, let's have you introduce yourself, but I was stalking you last night on your socials and on your website. And you know a heck of a lot more than, like, you're an expert, and we're here at Stoner School. And so, Emily, please intro yourself, and then we've got lots of questions for you.
Awesome. I'm super excited. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being interested in cannabis. You know, the more that people come out and talk about it freely and openly, the easier it gets for others. And so I am originally a registered dietitian nutritionist. I used to work in a hospital, and I used to hide the fact that I used cannabis. Like, if anyone had found out that I used cannabis, like, I thought my career would have been over. But I have been a daily user for at least 10 years now. So I hit all that And eventually I realized, working in the hospital, traditional healthcare, not really right for me. And eventually I quit my job and I had a small food blog on the side. And about like 2018, 19, CBD became like huge and people wanted to learn about it. And so I was like, okay, this is a really safe way to dip my toes in the water and start talking about cannabis. And it was so well received and people were like, I want to learn more. So I was like, perfect. I went back to school. I got a certification as a holistic cannabis practitioner and learned so much about cannabis. And we can talk about the sciencey stuff because there's a ton of science that's just kind of mind blowing. But that kind of just led me here. So now all I do is talk about cannabis. I have a cannabis blog. I do a lot of cannabis recipes. And as you mentioned on Instagram, I just came out, I'm a cannabis using mother as well. And so that's kind of really fun to talk about with people.
Yeah.
So
that's why we found you, because it seems like you know a lot about this world and are doing it in like a sort of science-backed way. It feels like
Thank
you know what you're talking about.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Like having the background, I have a master's of science in nutrition helps so much because we learn anatomy, physiology. And then when I went and got that certification, I learned so much about our endocannabinoid system and how it works with the rest of our bodies. So when you want to talk science, I can dive deep down into the endocannabinoid system. And that's really what was like the spark of like, we're actually meant to interact with cannabis. It's meant for us. And that's why it really just became, I had to talk about it, like people need to know this.
You say that was the spark. Like, I was actually wondering, like, how did it really start for you? Like, when you say, tell us more about that spark and then also why it's meant for us. I've never heard that before. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, so I have always used cannabis since, for the last 10 years to manage my own anxiety and depression in alternative to prescription medication. And it's always worked well for me. And I always was like, why do I feel so much better? That typical like stoner stereotype where people are lazy and they are unmotivated and they don't want to do anything. When I use cannabis, I feel so much better. I'm like, I'm going to get my work done. I am going to do this. I feel ambitious. And so I never really understood why I felt so shameful about something that made me feel really, really good. And then when I learned about the endocannabinoid system and how it affects our bodies, I was like, okay, like I really shouldn't feel bad about this because my body was meant for cannabis. Cannabis was meant for my body. And just because I use it to feel better, like that should be celebrated.
Yeah.
What is the system you're talking about?
Yeah, and I wrote that down too, the endocannabinoid.
Also, I'm gonna rebrand what I said. Stoner School. We're now calling it Cannabis College because this is like an elevated thing.
Yes,
like we're leveling up here. Okay.
All right. So we have an immune system. We have a digestive system. All of these systems that control things in the body. We have what's called an endocannabinoid system, and we don't learn about this in school because it's relatively new in science terms. It's about 30 years old. And what we know of it is limited because cannabis remains federally illegal. No state or federally funded company can come in and study it. So anything that's private study, it's just really hard to get like concrete information. But we know we have this endocannabinoid system, and it's made up of these receptors and messengers. So we have two receptor sites. We have CB1 receptors, which are on our brain and central nervous system. And then we have CB2 receptors, which are all throughout the body. Each one of these receptors reacts with the cannabinoids in cannabis. So cannabis, I don't do the hemp versus marijuana thing. Those are really just government made up words. It's all cannabis, and all cannabis, it's kind of like a variety of a tomato plant. They can be slightly different. So certain cannabis plants can be high in CBD, and certain cannabis plants can be high in THC. And so through breeding, you can select the cannabinoids that are abundant in your cannabis. And so that really ties back to, okay, you have an endocannabinoid system. You can manipulate CBD and THC to work with your endocannabinoid system and help you feel better.
How do you know what cannabis is meant for you?
If I had the answer to that question, I would be a very rich, wealthy woman. And kind of that's what my work is about, is teaching everybody that their own endocannabinoid system is unique to them. So nobody's ever going to react to cannabis the same way. It's just like our immune systems. They're unique to us. And that's why some people can have tons of THC and that makes them feel better, while other people can have a teeny tiny bit and freak out. We're all so different. That's where, when you're starting to learn how to use cannabis, the golden rule is always start low and go slow. You always baby step it.
It's not like a tolerance thing. Like, do you build tolerance? You know, cause like, I feel like that's, I dabble with cannabis now. And my husband takes it every day for anxiety. But I didn't know if it's like a tolerance thing. Like I take 2.5 milligrams and that I don't really feel any psychological effects from that, but I feel like it sort of chills me and like makes me vibe a little.
Yes. And so you're going to find that different dosages make you feel different ways. And so what I'm always telling women is when they're using cannabis, like kind of either like keep notes in your phone, or they make cannabis journals and write down your dose and how you feel afterwards. So that way, you know, sometimes we don't always remember, we might fall asleep, we might get busy doing something, but if you can keep track of the doses that you've taken and how you feel, it becomes so much easier to really medicate yourself in a way that's productive for you.
When you say start slow and
start
go
low,
start low and go slow.
Yes.
What is that in a measurement of, for people
so
who
this
don't
is
know
really
anything?
Mostly for THC, because obviously THC is the one that causes the psychological effects. But low, I would say, is 2.5 milligrams. That would be a good starting place. And we always hear these stories of people eating these outrageous amounts of edibles, 50 milligrams at a time. People can have very adverse reactions. It can absolutely make them feel sick and a racing heart rate. And how many people have gone to the emergency room because they think they're dying? Most people are 100% fine. No one's ever overdosed, but it's really uncomfortable. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you don't feel well.
Yeah.
At Colleen's wedding,
yeah,
I had a hairdresser who grew her own hemp, I think, or whatever. And I thought it was so genius, but she made something called granola. It was like chronic granola, right? Isn't that clever? And it was 70 milligrams in a bag. And I had no idea, like, and she was like, oh, start with like half a bag between the two of you or something like that. So I brought 2 bags, I think, maybe 3. I don't remember. So we did it, had the granola, waited it was so good. We waited like an hour or something. I don't know. Then we had a whole other bag. And then, so between the two of us consumed 140 milligrams. And Call doesn't have the same receptors as I do. She was freaking fine. I thought I was floating. I thought like walls were made of water. I was like trying to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And it lasted for almost like 2.5 days. Like I still had effects at her wedding. And it was a horrible experience, but that was a lot of weed for me.
Yes, absolutely. And everybody's tolerance is different. Like you said, she can have and be just
she was like, this is great. And I'm like, I'm gonna die.
That's a hard part, I think, as women. We're like, okay, my friend is fine, like what's wrong with me? But we really have to be like, okay, I'm unique, this is my body. And so there's not a lot of science, but a lot of early evidence promote, like, they think it's the enzymes in the liver. So when we eat cannabis, it goes through our digestive system. And this is why it can take 1 hour to 2 hours to kick in, because it has to travel all the way through the body to the liver. And once THC gets to the liver, it is converted by enzymes into another molecule called 11-OH-THC. And it's this form of THC that makes you feel like you did on the wedding night, like that overwhelming, very, very high feeling.
Yeah.
And so how your body converts THC to 11-OH-THC will really, really impact how you feel. And that's why they believe that some people, I mean, they could take 100, 200 milligrams and not feel a thing, but potentially they don't have the enzymes to convert that THC into 11-OH-THC. So when you're eating edibles, you're really kind of dealing with a different molecule altogether. And it's how well your body converts THC into that molecule.
So if you're saying start small with like 2.5, what is the best, do you think, an edible, like a gummy, what's the best way to get the most precise dosage?
I do like starting with pre-packaged, like whether it's from a dispensary or somewhere where you actually have like actual milligrams labeled on it. Because as much as I love homemade edibles, it's a complete guess on what the dosage is. And if you're just learning out, it's much easier to keep track and say, hey, I know I only had 2.5 milligrams. But if you're having a homemade brownie, you have no clue, and then you can never replicate it or know, what's the next step to take.
Yeah.
If there are people listening to this that are like, how do I know if I want to try? Like, can you offer some insights into like maybe your own experience or other people you know of like what they were kind of trying to accomplish and then what ended up happening? So like whether it was, you mentioned anxiety, like I've heard a number of different things that cannabis can help with, like joint pain
Yep.
or so can you offer like some potential things that people might find of
Of
value
course.
in their life to want to start experimenting for?
That's kind of like, I don't want to be like cannabis is a miracle. It's a great tool, but because we have that endocannabinoid system and because those receptors are everywhere in our body, that's why it really does work for so many things. So it does work for mental and emotional anxiety and depression, but it also does work for physical pain. So that joint pain, things like that. So when people come for cannabis, most likely it's going to help them in some way if they use it in a way that makes them feel good. Obviously, taking too much or having the wrong cannabinoid. And so when we say cannabinoids, CBD and THC are cannabinoids, but the cannabis plant itself has over 100. And science just doesn't know about each individual one as much as we would like. And so CBD and THC are the most abundant. You'll find mostly that, but there's also other cannabinoids called CBN. So CBN is what we call the sleep cannabinoid, and people use that to sleep. They also have the mother cannabinoid, which is CBG, and people use that for focus and energy. So it's about the mother cannabinoid. So when the plant is growing in the ground, before the cannabinoids convert into CBD or THC, they start as all CBG. And then they convert depending on the genome of the plant and how it's going to genetically produce. But yeah, that's why. So I grew hemp here in New York State. I was a licensed hemp farmer for the past 2 years, and I grew these plants, and they look 100% like a regular cannabis plant. You can't tell the difference between a hemp and a cannabis plant because it's only a chemical difference.
Oh, why are some of them psychological? That's where your cannabinoid receptors are?
Yep. So THC is going to be the one that really is the only one you need to be concerned about. CBN is not going to make you feel high. CBD is not going to make you feel high. CBG is not going to make you feel high. It's really just that THC that produces those psychological effects.
But what about a combo? Because I bought something that had like, because I don't really like the high effect. What my favorite thing is to take like 2.5 milligrams and like one drink. And then it makes me feel as if I'm 4 drinks in instead of just one, right? That it's like
100% with you on that. Actually, I have started drinking so much less by having a little bit of an edible, and I'll have one drink and I feel good. Like I don't want to drink more. So
and then it lasts so much longer than like one
and
drink.
I'm drinking water by the end of the night, and I'm like, I'm going to feel great in the morning. Like so proud of myself, but I still had a good time. So I 100% agree with that. But there is something to be said. So, excuse me, science, they have this thing called the Entourage Effect, and saying that the cannabis plant with all of its cannabinoids, everything works together in synergy. And so CBD and THC, when combined, work really well together. So CBD can help to take away the unwanted effects of THC. And that's why I always tell people too, if you take too much THC and if you're feeling very, very sick, CBD, taking a hearty dose of CBD, because you can't take really too much CBD, can help bring down that high. It helps to reduce those panicky feelings, those anxiety feelings. So for gummies, I have gummies in my product line, and they're a 1-to-1 ratio. So we call it a ratio because it's 1 part CBD, 1 part THC. And that really helps people from feeling that really too intense THC high and kind of mellows it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, in the long run, like people like to get high, but nobody likes to get too high. It doesn't make you feel good.
No. Yeah. Well, because so I took something, I can't remember what it was, but I feel like it was a CBG. Is that a thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's this company I saw, we order from Leafly or whatever, we go to I think it's called Leafly, and then there's it has dispensaries near you. So I found a dispensary and ordered, and it was these little pearls. And I think I had like half of a pearl, and it was like supposed to be CBG, and I didn't think there was THC in it, but maybe there was. And I felt really affected by it.
Yes.
Even though it was like said that it wasn't supposed to be psychoactive, I was like, whoa, I am feeling the effects of that.
And that's honestly can happen because I guess when we say like psychological, every cannabinoid, they interact with the receptors on our brain. So they do produce an effect psychologically, but maybe we don't feel intoxicated by it, but we definitely feel it. So like a lot of people, when they take CBD, they feel relaxed, but not necessarily high. And so sometimes it's hard for women sometimes too, to feel that or to notice it, because we're so used to looking for a high. It's hard to notice the absence of something or stress. And that's why CBD really is great for people who do not want to get high, because it can produce effects that you can feel without them being physiological mind effects.
Yeah. What about Delta 8?
I am gonna talk mad shit about Delta 8.
Spill the tea.
So remember I told you there's over 100 different cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. Naturally occurring Delta 8 by itself, normal, healthy, whatever. But it occurs it's a minor cannabinoid, meaning it occurs in very small percentages. And so you're never going to get out of a regular plant enough Delta 8 to do what people are doing now. Like, so to get this Delta 8, they have to convert it with acid. And so all Delta 8 is fake. It's synthetic. They're converting CBD hemp with this acid, like bootstrappers, not legit companies. I'm sure legit companies are using a better form of acid, but like people have done it with battery acid. Delta 8 is then like it's in concentrated form and they spray it on the CBD flower. And so it looks like normal natural, but it's not. And so many people have gotten sick from it. I've had a lot of people come to me. And it's funny you said that. I just got a letter from New York State because I'm in their program like 3 days ago saying that if anyone in New York State is selling Delta 8 or Delta 10, they have an immediate cease and desist.
Whoa.
Whoa, good to know.
I've never heard Delta 8.
Well, I found it because
it's so confusing. There's so many forms.
And I thought that it was like a lesser version of a high, right? Because I'm looking for something that like, I want to feel a little bit of intoxication, but I don't want to feel really stoned. And so I thought that even though they said it's not really going to, it's like, sometimes it causes psych. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm in for that. Yeah. So then I started looking at Delta 8, not knowing I was ingesting acid, a synthetic kind.
Emily, so would you recommend a 1-to-1 for Ashley if she wants?
I was literally just going to say, if I were going to give you any advice, I would play around with your CBD to THC ratio and see, do you need a 2-to-1 ratio? So do you need 10 milligrams of CBD for every 5 milligrams of THC? Or you can even bring it down further. And again, with CBD, you can really take as much as you want. There's really, I mean, no one's going to take more than 100 milligrams at a time, but you could take up to 100 milligrams and be fine and see how that makes you feel. Play around with that ratio and say, okay, finally, like I'm a 20-to-1 kind of girl.
And did you say that if I have more CBD in my system, that it lessens or increases the effect of you said lessens?
Yes, it will help to moderate it. So what you're looking for, that perfect high of not too much THC, adding in that CBD should help mellow that out for you. Depending on your own unique endocannabinoid system.
So, Emily, I live in Oregon, which was one of the first states to legalize cannabis. And there are cannabis stores aplenty here. And I still have a lot of friends, family who are like, I'm nervous about going into a store. And I haven't been into a store in forever because I'm just really pregnant. But like people that I love are like, what do I like? They're really like anxious about going in. And so do you have any counsel for people to muster up and then like what they should do when they get there based on what their goals are?
Yes, definitely. So I always tell people, first and foremost, the people who work at dispensaries are so kind. They're used to people walking in and having no clue what they're talking about. They're there to help you. They're really kind. They're really sweet. I've yet to meet a mean bud tender. But you go in and say,
bud tender?
Yeah, that's what they're called, bud tenders. And they're wonderful people. And, you know, they all have different levels of education, I'm sure. But if they're really good at what they do, if they spend a lot of time around the products that they're offering, you can literally walk in, know nothing, and say, hi, I really just want help sleeping. And they'll be like, I have X, Y, and Z. Which one would you like to try? They really are so, so nice. And I mean, if you really want to, you could bring a friend with you too, if you have a friend who's a little bit more encouraging. But I mean, I always think like, how scared was I the first time I ever went into a liquor store? Probably because I was underage, but because you've never done it before, it's really intimidating. But no, like, people who work in cannabis in general are really, really sweet, kind people, and the bud tenders are there to help you.
I love that.
I also have found, maybe this isn't good, but when I get intimidated, that's why I go online and I like order.
You can search everything.
Yeah. So I'll go online. I'll go, if you guys go to leafly.com, unless you have another recommendation, it'll pull up
everything.
Yeah. And then I don't feel like it does a great job of breaking down what the products are, but then I usually go to the like company's website to see if it shares more about it. And then I just go and I'm like, I have an online order. And then I look like I don't know what I'm doing more.
That's really a great option too. You absolutely can order online, and it gives you time to look through the menu. And so if you're looking through the menu and you say, like, what is a concentrate? Just Google what is a cannabis concentrate. Then you educate yourself along the way. And that way you feel confident knowing what you're ordering is going to hopefully help you too.
Go ahead, Ash.
The cleanest ways to to consume? You said gummy is a great way for like precise sort of measure for an edible.
And it doesn't have to be a gummy. Anything that's pre-made, that's been lab tested. I mean, they make chocolates, they make caramels, they make just straight up capsules. So like I prefer like a lower sugar diet. So like capsules are perfect because gummies can have a ton of sugar in them. But I mean, they have options for everybody. But edibles are great. They're, you're never really going to be eating that much to be unhealthy with edibles. But there are other safe alternatives to edibles too, because edibles aren't right for everybody. A lot of people, when they think cannabis, they think smoking. I don't want to smoke. I am a huge, huge fan of dry herb vaporizing. So maybe you've heard of this before, maybe you haven't. You're probably familiar with vaping. And that's traditionally a vape oil that you can vape in a vape pen. And you can find that on dispensaries. They'll say like vape cartridge. Dry herb vaporizing is different. There's several different models and machines out there, but basically you're using actual flower, just like you would put in a pipe, but you're putting it in this dry herb vaporizer, and it uses heat instead of flames. And so the difference here is that this is using conduction heat and not using any combustion. So nothing is lighting into flames. And so there's no then carcinogens that come with lighting your cannabis into flames. And so you get the same effect of smoking, which I personally think that you get a much better effect. It's so clean, you can taste it, you can enjoy it without having the, in the back of your mind, I'm smoking. It's obviously not good for me.
Yeah.
A little vape.
Do you have a brand that you like of that?
I'm a huge fan of the Dynavap.
Dynavap?
Yep, DYNAVAP. I've been using that now for like probably at least a year. Actually, when I was pregnant, because I didn't want to smoke, but I wanted an alternative, was the perfect option. And like I said, it just really elevates the experience. A lot of people are into the taste and aroma of cannabis because of what's called terpenes. A lot of people are into terpene profiles, and that's just what makes it smell the way it does. But a dry herb vaporizer allows you to actually taste the terpenes, and like real connoisseurs who like can tell the taste of the strain, like it's pineapple or whatever. It just allows you to enjoy it more because you're not overwhelmed by the smoke.
Yeah.
I love it. You guys will love it. It really is such a nice.
Well, my husband, like I said, I hope he's fine with me talking about it, but it's like, it's one of those things. Like I talk about mental health because the more we talk about it, the less stigma there is. So I share that he takes it every day. And he does a THC CBD split because he has anxiety, and it has helped him so much, but he's been doing it for a couple of years now, and he's like coughing. We had COVID, and it's just ever since then he is coughing a lot. And so, but he doesn't like the gummies or the edibles because it's not quick. Like there's a delay. And so if he's feeling anxiety, it doesn't impact him. So I'm thinking this vaporizing thing might be
perfect.
Yeah.
And
test it for the pod, Ash.
What?
Have John test it for the pod and report back. Yeah.
But there is something good to notice that that's really one of the main differences between these two consumption methods. Like there's 4 or 5 main consumption methods. So inhalation is one, and the benefits of it is it works within 1 to 3 minutes, but it only lasts about 1 to 3 hours. Whereas edibles, it can take, 30 minutes to 3 hours to kick in, but it can last 4 hours to 24 hours. And so when people are thinking, you know, how am I going to use cannabis? It's important to keep those things in mind because they're just such different experiences.
Yeah. Okay. And what about tinctures, which are like, if you guys don't know, I didn't know this either, but like those oils.
Yes. Yep. And so it's interesting. Tinctures, in bottles are always oils, but you can also make alcohol-based tincture. So if you're at home, if you're growing your own cannabis, you can use alcohol as a solvent to get the cannabinoids off the plant, and then you can make it into different things, oils and stuff. But the oil ones, you put them under your tongue. So that would be a sublingual application. You hold the oil under your tongue and for as long as possible. And what happens is the cannabinoids in the oil interact with the cannabinoid receptors in your mouth. And so that really works. It's different for everybody, but within 15 to 30 minutes, like it's a pretty quick onset time. And for some people, it can last anywhere for 2 to 4 hours. Some people like this method because it's just quick, it's easy, they're not smoking, they're not eating. Other people don't like it because they have a hard time with the oil in their mouth and holding it under their tongue. But that's why it's so great to know about all these different application methods, because if one doesn't work for you, there's still other ways to try. And then topical, you can use topical cannabis as well. So you can put cannabis on your skin because we have cannabinoid receptors on the skin.
I have it on my back currently.
Perfect. And a lot of people love CBD on the skin, like pain relief. A lot of people say it helps so much. You can put THC on the skin, but if you're just kind of lightly rubbing it on, it's not going to make you feel high. Dispensaries do sell though what's called a transdermal patch. And that's meant to stay on the skin for an extended period of time. And over time, the THC can then absorb into the bloodstream, and that can cause a high feeling. But regular, just like a THC lotion on the skin, should not make you feel high.
Okay.
Most people use that for like localized pain relief, like joint pain or a bug bite, or like your knees hurt, or you have a scab you're trying to heal. The topical application, it's meant to be at the site of inflammation or wherever you need it to be.
Okay. So then I think one of my last questions is, do you have any brands that you recommend? Did you say that you make some? Like, can people buy from you?
Yeah. So I have a full product line. We started with CBD products when we got our CBD hemp farmers license. That's how we kind of got started into this. We have CBD oils, we have CBG oils, and we have CBN oils. And now we're just starting to dabble in the world of THC. So we have our first line of Thc Gummies. They're the 1-to-1. So they're one part THC, 1 part CBD.
Yeah. And
so we are able to ship them all across the country because by definition of the 2018 Farm Bill, for it to be considered hemp, it needs to contain less than 0.3% THC per dry weight volume. So our scientists who formulate them in the lab, the 5-gram gummy contains 12.5 milligrams of THC. Now, I failed algebra, but I Googled it and did the math, and it's less than 0.3% THC. We could go up to 15% and still be under the threshold. So now we're able to ship to people all across the country because it's legal. And I have a lot of people like Texas and a lot of states where they can't usually get things are just so excited because they can finally get THC without feeling like a criminal.
Okay, but so tell me about this. I'm on your site now, which is shop.emilykylenutrition.com, right? Is that where you would?
Yeah.
Okay, so I like gummies. So you got the Bliss gummies, Sleep gummies, Focus gummies, Revive gummies.
Yes.
What are those?
So sleep, or CBN is for sleep. There are different cannabinoids. All 4 of these products are based on the 4 major cannabinoids that we know about. So CBD is just your general kind of anxiety relief, pain relief without the intoxicating feeling. CBG, so I would take a CBG gummy when I got to the office, and that's for like focus, energy, chill. THC gummy is for like 5 p.m. I'm done with work. I want it to kick in at nighttime and relax. And then sleep gummies, my husband is always like, stop taking them. You're falling asleep as soon as you hit the bed. But they help you stay asleep longer.
Oh,
nice.
Okay.
And there's a ton of stuff on your website.
I do try to put out
last night,
of information so that people can really learn for themselves.
There's like guides for beginners and recipes. Do you have a favorite recipe on there that people should go make?
Just the standard canna butter is the most popular. People, once they get that method down, they can take it and make it coconut oil, olive oil, and then they can make baked goods or put it on vegetables. That's just really versatile.
I'm on your Instagram right now too. So you guys give Emily a follow at Emily Kyle, Kyle Nutrition. And then there's a link there also that'll route you to the guides, recipes, and website and products.
Awesome.
And then if they
Emily,
want to work with you,
yeah. So like if someone is like, hey, what should I buy from your store? Like, do you offer like cannabis, like not consultation, but like guidance
It's
for
funny
people?
because just today I was thinking like I might consider opening up. So I used to do cannabis consultations and 30-minute calls with people. And then COVID hit, and everything changed. But I was thinking about going back. So right now, currently, I have online courses. So I have just a general cannabis compass course, which teaches you basically all the things we talked about today. And then I do have an edibles course as well. And then I have my Well With Cannabis community. It's a private membership community, which really got started because Facebook and Instagram hate all things cannabis, and they kept just, flagging and banning and blocking. So I created my own. It's a social media style platform where people can come and uncensoredly talk about cannabis. And that's been really, really awesome because it's just a really amazing people. And I can't even tell you how many like 80-year-olds, 70-year-olds, like the whole spectrum of people who are just like, I want to learn how to use cannabis. I don't want to be judged for it. Like, just help me out. And so it's a really nice place where if you want to like meet other people who use cannabis too, without feeling like they're going to be like, what's wrong with you?
No judgment.
It's a great safe space.
Okay,
this has been awesome,
mind blowing, and I'm so excited about it. Yeah.
If you guys ever want to do a part 2, I mean, there's so many things at cannabis that like I could talk forever.
Yeah, I do kind of want to dive more into the science of it and understand, because I feel like that is why there is a stigma, because it was illegal for so long that people classify it in this drug thing. And for me too, like, I'm like, I don't know how safe this is. Like, what is it actually doing in my body and whatever. So I'd love to maybe do a part 2 that's more diving into the science, if you guys like it. Otherwise, I'll just like, take your course or something and try to get shit on my own. But if you guys like this, let us know. And obviously go check Emily out on her social and on her website. But I'm eating this up. This makes me very excited.
Well, and then you just have so much more control. And when you have like holistic wellness, to have like one more tool in your tool belt just makes everything so much easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. I love it. Emily, you're amazing. Thank you so much for thank you for taking us to Cannabis College 101.
Yes. I love it. We've upgraded donor school to Cannabis College.
Yes.
I love it.
We definitely should do 102 to Ashley's point. And in the meantime, you guys give Emily a follow, check out her website. And Emily, you have an open invite to the You Can Sit With Us podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right. It's time to land
the bird. Let's rant and rave. Here's my rant, and I texted you about this last week, but there's...
I'm pissed at it. I'm pissed too.
Dude. So there were 2 big ticket items for baby Ellie that I was very much counting on using, for Ellie. Mm-hmm. I'm still trying to figure it out. So I'm not going to like totally dig on these companies all that much, because like I'm hopeful that they're going to come through.
Okay.
But the first one is the LV. Mm-hmm. I've raved about the LVs on this podcast.
You got me to buy the LV.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's they're like 5. So what they are, if you, pumping is really hard, right?
All of breastfeeding is, and then pumping on top is like,
it's all of it.
Yeah.
And with Ben, I was traveling a lot for work, and the big pumps with the plug-in, like when you're like attached to a wall, which is what insurance covered, it was really, really hard to do that like on the go. Like it just was in an airplane. That's not gonna work. And it was extremely stressful, and I was really excited to find the LVs, but they're expensive. They're like $500.
Yeah, they're a major investment.
But I justified it by like, okay, I'm gonna buy these, and then they're gonna work for, if we are able to have number 2, they're gonna work for number 2. So I stored them safely. I get them. There's 2 separate units, and I go to plug them in to like get them charged up for when Ellie's going to be here, and there's nothing charging. They're like not working. So I call customer service. I'm like, hey, this is weird. I'm trying to get these back up and running. Can you help me? And they're like, okay, is something wrong with the cord? And I'm like, well, I switched out a couple different cords but it's both units. So I would have a hard time thinking it's two faulty cords, but switching them all out. They said, well, why don't you try a computer? Because if they've been dormant for a while, they might need a stronger charge. And I'm
Oh.
like, okay. So I try a computer and nothing worked. And they're like, well, basically they're like, you're SOL. And there's a new version out and we don't do repair services. And so the best we can offer is you're going to have to sign up for our newsletter to maybe get a discount code towards a future purchase.
Mm-hmm.
This is coming in hot to a ragey hormonal lady.
Mm.
And it's just the real rant here, because like I'm gonna hope that I'm like, well, we're gonna need to escalate this because that's not gonna work for me. Mm-mm. Because you spend $500. It's an investment.
That's what I was telling Colleen. I'm like, this isn't a freaking onesie we're talking about. This is a luxury. It feels like I mean, that is price point is a luxury price point. Is not just like, oh, just go buy another one.
Yeah, no. And it's both of them. So it seems like, and then I went online and there's a known battery issue with the LVs. And so this is a product issue, right? This isn't like a fluke thing. This is like so that's a whole other layer. But if you have something known that's wrong with your product, right, and you're charging a $500 price tag, the solution around that should never be like, hey, just like any other potential customer, sign up and hope you get a discount. Right. Like if they had said, there's a known issue with these, it's X number, like whatever, we're going to offer you half off.
Right.
Like something meaningful.
I was going to say like a $300 credit or $350 or something. Yeah.
Something meaningful. I would have been like, thank you. Or like I would have been a little bit whatever, but I would have gotten over it. But I'll tell you what I will not invest in again is with a company that's not going to take care of you in that way. Like that's just wild.
And that's not standing behind their product either.
Right.
Like, oh, we know that our product is hosed, so that's on you for buying it. Buy another one. What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, the outlet also is a thing. So they've updated their software so that they can stay FDA compliant. But because they've updated it, anyone who has purchased it before that update, it won't connect to the app anymore.
Oh.
So an app is like super helpful. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll still work, but it's just with the base. But like these big ticket, and you gifted me the outlet, and it is not.
And I was about
cheap.
to say my experience with the outlet was very good because it was before they did this update. And I was, 2 years apart or whatever. And our outlet that I had with Revy didn't work by the time Matt came. And first they sent me a new base. Then they sent me, and that didn't work. And then they sent me a new sock. But
I'll
now
try it
I
again.
guess.
I'll try it again because we had some friends who also had the same issue. And they're like, you're SOL. And maybe it's that they're getting so many calls because they couldn't afford to take care of everyone. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But dude, and it's also just frustrating. Like having something on your to-do list like that, where it's like, I don't want to be mad, but this is just gotta get done. Like I don't want to
pregnant moms. That's not the market that can really be tolerating this right now. Like, you don't have the bandwidth mentally.
And I'm trying to be like super cordial. I'm like, thank you for your help. Can you please help me escalate? Like trying to be a gracious person, but like I'm also just like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like that, there's just something about the sign up for our newsletter and hope to get a certain percentage. Something about that. Just I thought they got to change their script. Mm-hmm. That is like insulting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's shitty training.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Someone in their marketing team, like that's not, or customer service team, like, yo, people remember when they're taken care of, and they don't forget, like,
right. Yeah.
That kind of stuff. All right. What's your rant?
My rant is when you have to pee so bad and there is not a promise of a bathroom.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, and you talk about a short fuse. I it is so urgent, and it's like you're gonna pee your pants, right? And what happened yesterday was I was at Target with Mac, and there's a bathroom at Target, but like we had a shopping cart. I had to kind of pee on the way over there, and I thought, okay, well, it's not too urgent. Like I'll be able to make it through this trip, right? So I mean, it's my fault, but I'll be able to make it through this trip, no problem. But like Mac is a wild maniac of a child, and I love him. I shouldn't even have to say that because that should be obvious, but I love him, and he's crazy. And then we had a full cart of stuff, and I'm like. And then we go to the toy section, and because I told him he could pick something out, whatever. Again, my fault. But he is like, so we're there, and he's taking his time. He's being really slow, and I don't really want to melt down. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I know you want to stay here and look at the toy. I'm like trying to do the gentle parent, and I'm like, Mac, I gotta go, dude. I gotta go, because I also knew we had to do the checkout thing.
Yep.
Right? There's gonna be another extended. But I was afraid to go up to the front, and like if I take Mac out of the cart, because you can't take your cart into the shop in the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not allowed. But if I take Mac out of the cart, what the hell is he going to do in the bathroom? Like I don't know what I'll do with him. He will be scaling the walls. He'll be licking the floor. He'll probably be climbing under, looking at other people's situations. I mean, he is, or he'll throw himself on the ground and start crying if I try to tell him.
And he's strong.
And
These
he's
kids
very
are strong. And so then
yeah. And I would be on the toilet, right? So it'd be like, I just was picturing urine everywhere. And it got real hairy there. It got really hairy. But luckily I made it home to the toilet. I didn't even take him out of his car. So I like ran into the house really quick and peed, and then like went back out.
Yeah.
And got him, when he was in the garage.
Oh my
because
gosh.
but that panicky feeling when you're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. This is going to be an embarrassing situation. So that full bladder situation.
Also the relief when you start going.
Oh my, yeah.
And
you're
it
like,
is funny. It's kind of like intense and then you're like, can relax. Finally.
And you feel like proud of yourself. I've never thought about that before, but you kind of feel like you walk a little taller. Like, oh, I did that. That was really hard, and I did it.
I did.
I can do hard things.
Rave to me, or I'll rave to you.
Okay.
I was out on a walk the other day, and this guy stopped me, and he was running around the neighborhood, and he had signs in his hand, and he said, "Have you seen this dog?" And nothing is worse, right? Like, like it's just like, oh my God, it breaks your heart, like lost. Like I was just anyway, and I'm like, I'm gonna share this on social. I'm gonna of course, keep an eye out. And then we found out I love the internet, because you find out through social, because I was like seeing this on Nextdoor and stuff, that the dog was found. And I just love reunions.
Yeah.
Oh man, just the relief and that they're okay. And this dog was like gone a couple of days and like went across the highway, and he was like it was like he had a real intense adventure.
Like where they found him was like, how did he survive that? Wow.
Yeah. And I love it when and then there's stories like that. There's like, dogs do get found and reunited often. And I was so, I didn't even know this guy. And I'm like so happy for him. I thought about it all night.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, man.
Oh, and I mean, think about he must have been really in it to be like walking around the neighborhood with signs, like stopping people, as you do, of course.
Yeah. And that was day 3 or something of the dog being
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Anyway. What's your rave?
My rave is, let's see, what did I put here? Oh, okay. So I saw this TikTok. I feel like half of my sentences start with that.
Yeah.
But this woman was talking about something that has totally shifted the game for her and her perspective. And she says she stopped, because I always talk about with clients, stop shoulding all over yourself. Like, oh, I should work out more. I should go to bed earlier. Because that never fit. Like, I should lose weight. It never really, when you think about how that feeling feels, believing that I should drink more water, I should go to bed, it feels like pressure, or it feels stressful, which is not then a very helpful thought. But she said what she shifted I should to I get to and so it'll be like, oh, I should really drink more water. I get to drink more water. And how amazing is it that I have access to clean water, right? Or I should go to bed earlier. And then she like moves it. It's almost like a gratitude practice. Like I get to go to bed earlier. Like I have the wherewithal to go to bed in a safe space with a roof over my head, and I don't have to worry about if I'm going to wake up safe or whatever, like, and she just kind of went on about some of these things that we tell ourselves we should do, and the reframe of I get to. And I've been sort of practicing it, but it's sort of new to me, but I wanted to share it here because I feel like that's a great practice for all of us to do. Like, oh, I should be a better mom. No, I get to be a better mom. It's right. Because sometimes I say that to myself, like, I should be better. I should play with my kids more. I get to. That's a privilege. And my kids are healthy and they're able-bodied and I get to play, and I'm able-bodied. I can play with them. And, just like it's a total reframe, not just I get to say that, but then to also talk about why it's a good thing that we get to and move into a space of gratitude,
I love that.
So I just thought that was kind of a cool thing I wanted to share.
I love it. I love it, you guys.
And we love you.
We love you. You can leave a review, a nice one. Leave us something. Talk to your friends. Keep the show.
Keep the drinks flowing. Keep it flowing. And join us on Patreon.
Yes.
patreon.com/you can sip with us. You can sip with us always.
And we will see you next Tuesday. Bye.